It's time for Satisfactory Update 6. It seems like we've had Update 6 forever, because it's been on the experimental branch of the game for a lot longer than normal. This update coincided with Coffee Stain Studios' summer vacation, so us players had a lot of extra time to test out the new features. But now Update 6 is stable and complete enough to make it to the Early Access branch, also known as the stable branch of the game. Along with all of the new features that have been on the experimental branch during this update, there are some brand new features and tweaks. In case you don't play the experimental branch, or if you're just getting back into the game after a long break away, we're going to cover everything new to the game in this release, even the content that has been on the experimental branch already. Also keep in mind that Coffee Stain Studios themselves have said that this is a relatively small update compared to previous ones, and even though there are some awesome things in this, that is true. This is an update full of a lot of small things, nothing major like pipes or anything like that from previous updates. But okay, enough introductions, let's get into the updates. But first, if you do end up enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to Satisfactory News, and check out some of the other Satisfactory guides on our channel. If you're new to the game, we have some great tutorials to help you get started. Alright, I'm going to be following the official patch notes here for the sake of organization, so feel free to follow along with me. Spire Coast. One of the most obvious changes when you're exploring the world will probably be the Spire Coast. This is an area of the map that our community managers Jason Snutt have been warning us about for months. The Spire Coast biome, located in the northern part of the map, was slated for a major update. The updates are going to be visual and give the biome an entirely new and unique theme, but the update was also going to change the terrain, so players were warned that any factories in this biome would need to be moved or they would be stuck in some walls. Well, if you weren't paying attention, it might be too late now. The update went into effect on the experimental branch a while ago now, so many players have had the chance to relocate their buildings after finding out where all of these physical structures were going to be. But this new biome change turns the Spire Coast into an island paradise, with some fascinating vertical rock structures. This was a popular area for setting up oil processing factories, and it should remain that way. The oil nodes that were here are still present and are still the same purities, but they have been moved slightly. Also, the cliff wall between the Spire Coast and Dune Desert has received a full visual update, so players can now safely build here as well, without worrying about their buildings getting swallowed by the rocks. Swamp. The swamp biome has brand new vegetation and atmosphere, making it incredibly spooky. The area is functionally the same, but the look and feel is a lot more unique, creepy, and detailed. Sky, atmosphere, and weather. If you happen to look up while you're building your factories, you might notice a few changes to the sky. The sky visuals have been updated, and there are some new planets in the solar system, as well as a galaxy. There's also rainy weather, although it's just visual and has no gameplay impact. This should add a lot more variety to the days as you build your factories. Hand equipment and ammunition. Update 6 brings with it a huge expansion to weapons and to equipment. This comes mostly in the form of new ammo and Nobelisk types. There are a few UI improvements to help with this as well. You can see more easily which hand slot items you're switching to, and there is a new holster feature so you can run around with empty hands, finally. These are great quality of life updates since there are now so many items and it could be easy to lose track. In terms of the new ammo types, there are quite a few, so you should watch the update video that Coffee Stain Studios put out that covers all of the ammo types in a lot more detail. But it's nice to have more variety and options for exploring. Turbo ammo is a lot of fun, and the Pulse Nobelisks are a fun way to get around. MAM progression. The MAM has been rebalanced and reshuffled to reflect some of the equipment changes. You can also unlock some of these new ammo types through MAM research. Few alternate recipes were also moved to the MAM instead of hard drives, which is going to make life a bit easier. Turbo fuel and compacted coal can now be unlocked in the MAM because they significantly help with game progression. These are some of the most sought after alternate recipes that will help you in your late game. In order to help with planning, you can now see more future items in the MAM to better understand what is available and how to get there. Multiple body equipment slots. It has been a hotly requested feature, and since appearing in the Update 6 experimental branch, it's been a big hit. And that is multiple body slots for equipment. This means you can, for example, wear a radiation suit at the same time as the jetpack, while also wearing Blade Runners. You'll now have a dedicated slot for head, body, back, and legs, which will help with exploring but also with general factory building. Boombox. The Boombox is a brand new feature for the Early Access update, and it wasn't in the experimental branch. It lets you play some music for yourself and your friends while building your factories. The Boombox equipment and several tapes can be unlocked in the Awesome Shop. You can also find some hidden tapes throughout the world. It also includes a turbo base feature, which you can use as a weapon. It's such a seemingly random inclusion to the game, but that's also why it fits so perfectly. Creatures. Visual updates. A lot of the creatures in the game got a visual overhaul with this update. The crab hatchers looked significantly different, and the spitters now have distinctive visual styles and attacks depending on the biome you find them in. AI system overhaul. The flying crabs behave slightly differently now, making them easier to deal with. A lot easier. But you need to destroy the hatcher, otherwise the flying crabs will continue to spawn. This is in contrast to the old version, where the crab hatcher would explode after spawning its flying crabs. The overall creature AI has been tweaked, but they should still mostly feel like they are behaving the same, at least for now. This is going to be an ongoing process, and creature AI still hasn't been finalized, but the new system will allow for additional flexibility in the future, even if the changes don't seem obvious right now. That being said, there are a few notable changes. Creatures now have separate visual and audio perception, so you can actually sneak past them by crouching if they're not looking at you. They can also panic and run under certain circumstances. Also, there is unique loot for all aggressive wildlife, and this loot can be used to create several new organic items. Map and more UI changes. Map and radar tower. The map now functions way differently than in the past. Before, you could unlock the map in the MAM partway through the game, but now it will be unlocked in Tier 1 as part of normal progression. Beacon functionality has been removed from the game and has been replaced by a couple of new and useful map features. One of these is markers, which are the direct replacement for beacons. Except now, you can place them anywhere on the map without building any items or physically being in that spot, and you can label them as well as color them. Stamps are kind of a smaller version of markers, letting you leave small reminders in the world to indicate things like caves or bushes. If you had any beacons on the map, they have been converted to markers. And if you attempt to place a beacon in the world, they will disappear and be turned into a marker. Radar towers were never that useful, but Update 6 gives them a real purpose. When they're powered, they immediately reveal a radius around them, as well as revealing every resource node within that radius. This makes it incredibly useful because you can see where resources are and what their purity is. You can also see whether you have a miner on them already. You'll get a general view of what additional resources and creatures you can find in that area too, such as slugs. This building is now an awesome tool for players exploring the map for the first time, or who want to get the most out of the exploration aspects of the game. To-do list updates. Also new in Update 6 is the upgraded to-do list. It was a fantastic addition to the experimental branch. It has always functioned as a checklist for what tasks you need to do, like building buildings, but you can now write personal notes or global notes that are visible to all players. You can even do some light formatting on this text. You can easily access it from any menu by clicking on the right side of the screen. Codex recipe improvements. It's always been useful to open the codex and see what an item's recipe contains, but it's now even more useful. All recipes can now be expanded to show their parts per minute information, and you can simulate different clock speeds. Basically, it can do everything that players were building an entire production building to look at in the past, so it's a nice quality of life update that should save time and resources. Technical improvements and changes. Telemetry overhaul. The patch notes make mention of a change to how gameplay data is collected, but this doesn't change the user experience. As usual, no personal data is collected, and the data that is collected is just used to see how people play the game in order to improve the game in the future. Sub-level saving. Sub-level saving is another backend change that players probably shouldn't notice. To quote the patch notes, this allows us to migrate world elements that need to be saved onto streaming tiles, where previously they were always loaded. This won't affect load or save times, but will allow for new features when it comes to interactable or saved game features. However, this does mean that your future saves won't be backwards compatible, but this shouldn't be a problem for most people. Additional features. I scoured the patch notes to find any other fun details that I think will have an impact on gameplay, and here are a few I thought were worth highlighting. Power poles and wall outlets can now snap to and be built on existing power lines, which will be much easier than deconstructing and reconstructing them and won't interrupt your power. Sign settings now autosave when you close them and have a revert button. Resource nodes on the compass now show whether they have a miner on them or not. There are several new foundation types, including half foundations and corner quarter pipe extensions. You can also apply materials to them. These items were not going to make it into the update due to being buggy still, but it looks like they found their way in last minute. You can now purchase pipelines with no indicator from the Awesome Shop. This will be great for people who want their piping to look a lot cleaner. The electric locomotive now has lights, so your nighttime train ride should be much better illuminated. The health of the Pioneer will now regenerate fully over time, instead of just to the 3 bars that it regenerated to previously. Okay, that's the full patch notes. It would be easy to spend a lot more time on any of these topics, so if you want full deep dives on radar towers or the new ammo types, please let me know. Or you can look at some of the update videos for the experimental branch of Update 6 on this channel or on the Coffee Stain Studios channel. And if you find any secrets that were kept out of the patch notes, please let us know. We'll certainly discover some new and exciting tools and ways to play the game as we explore the full release. If this video was useful or helpful, I'd love it if you could like and subscribe to Satisfactory News if you haven't already. And if you want, leave a comment letting me know what your favorite part of the update is. I will see you soon for more content about Update 6, so stay tuned.